The Cold War was a tense standoff. It lasted for decades, from the end of World War II until the early 1990s. Two superpowers faced off: the United States and the Soviet Union, each vying for global influence and dominance. They never directly fought, but they came close on several occasions, bringing the world to the brink of nuclear war. The Cold War began after World War II, as the wartime alliance between the US and the Soviet Union quickly dissolved. The US and Soviet Union had been allies during the war. Now they were rivals, driven apart by their vastly different ideologies. The US championed democracy and capitalism, promoting free markets and individual freedoms. The Soviet Union, on the other hand, promoted communism, advocating for a state-controlled economy and a single-party system. The rivalry played out globally. There were proxy wars in various regions where the superpowers supported opposing sides. These were conflicts in other countries, often in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. The Wall's fall in 1989 signaled change, marking the beginning of the end for the Cold War. The Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, leading to the dissolution of the Eastern Bloc. Many believed the Cold War was over, ushering in a new era of global relations and hope for lasting peace. The end of the Cold War brought euphoria. Some declared victory for the West. Democracy and capitalism had triumphed. But the reality was more complex. The Cold War's end didn't erase rivalry. Russia, the Soviet Union's successor, felt humiliated. It had lost its empire. It faced economic turmoil. Nationalism surged. Russia wanted to regain its power. The US emerged from the Cold War as the sole superpower. It expanded its military presence. It promoted democracy around the world. Some argued it acted unilaterally. NATO, the Western military alliance, expanded eastward. This angered Russia. NATO was created in 1949 to counter Soviet influence. Its purpose was collective defense. It started with 12 countries, including the US, Canada, and several Western European nations. Over time, it grew to include 30 members, extending its reach. Russia saw NATO expansion as a threat. The stage was set for renewed tensions. Old rivalries persisted. New challenges emerged. The world was different, but the seeds of conflict remained. The Cold War was over, but the peace was fragile. As the 20th century ended, a new power emerged: China. China had been largely isolated. It focused on internal development. But now it was opening up. China's economy boomed. It became the world's factory. It invested heavily in infrastructure and technology. Its military modernized rapidly. China's global influence grew. China's rise presented a challenge to the US-led order. The US had enjoyed unipolarity. Now it faced a potential rival. Competition between the two superpowers intensified. China's ambitions extended beyond economics. It asserted its territorial claims in the South China Sea. It sought to expand its influence in Africa and Latin America. It built partnerships with countries wary of US power. China's rise reshaped the global balance of power. The world was no longer unipolar. A new Cold War with different players and dynamics seemed possible. The year 2014 marked a turning point. Russia annexed Crimea from Ukraine. It supported separatists in eastern Ukraine. A new conflict erupted on European soil. The Ukraine conflict was a proxy war. Russia and the West backed opposing sides. The conflict had echoes of the Cold War, but it also had new dimensions. Russia used hybrid warfare tactics. It combined conventional military force with cyber attacks and disinformation. It aimed to destabilize Ukraine and undermine the West. NATO provided military support to Ukraine. It increased its presence in Eastern Europe. Sanctions were imposed on Russia. The conflict escalated tensions between Russia and the West. The Ukraine conflict showed that the Cold War's legacy lived on. Proxy wars, spheres of influence, and great power rivalry were back. The post-Cold War order was shattered. Shifting focus to a new, old threat. NATO was formed to counter the Soviet Union, a formidable adversary during the Cold War era. With the Soviet collapse in 1991, NATO's primary purpose seemed unclear, leading to debates about its future. Some argued it was a relic of the Cold War, no longer needed in a post-Soviet world. But NATO found new life by adapting to the changing global landscape and emerging threats. NATO's expansion eastward angered Russia. which saw it as a direct threat to its sphere of influence. However, this expansion also gave the alliance a renewed sense of purpose and unity. NATO members saw Russia's aggressive actions in Ukraine as a significant threat to European stability. They reaffirmed their commitment to collective defense, strengthening their resolve. In recent years, NATO also began to focus on the rising power of China. China's growing military power and assertiveness worried NATO members, prompting strategic discussions. They saw China as a potential challenger to the rules-based international order, necessitating a coordinated response. In 2022, NATO issued a new strategic concept to address these evolving challenges. It identified Russia as the most significant and direct threat to Allied security, underscoring the ongoing tensions. It also recognized the systemic challenges posed by China, particularly in the realms of cyber and economic warfare. NATO's shift in focus reflected the changing geopolitical landscape, adapting to new realities. The Cold War might be over, but its legacy continues to shape global politics. The era of great power competition is back, demanding vigilance and strategic foresight from NATO and its allies. The new arms race, faster, higher, further. The Cold War arms race focused on nuclear weapons, with the threat of nuclear annihilation looming over every geopolitical move. The new arms race is different. It's about technological superiority in various domains. Hypersonic missiles are one area of competition, traveling at speeds greater than 5 times the speed of sound. These missiles are difficult to detect and intercept, making them a game-changer in modern warfare. China and Russia are developing anti-satellite weapons, which could cripple U.S. military capabilities. Cyber warfare is a constant threat, targeting critical infrastructure and stealing sensitive information. The new arms race is destabilizing, increasing the risk of conflict and making the world a more dangerous place. Shadows and whispers espionage in the digital age. Espionage was a hallmark of the Cold War. Spies infiltrated governments and stole secrets. The methods have changed, but the game remains the same. Cyber espionage is rampant. Nation-states and criminal groups hack into computer systems. They steal sensitive data. They target governments, businesses, and individuals. Disinformation is a powerful weapon. Propaganda and fake news are spread online. Social media is used to manipulate public opinion. The goal is to sow discord and undermine trust. Intelligence agencies still operate in the shadows. They recruit spies and gather intelligence. They use technology to track targets and intercept communications. The stakes are high. The world of espionage is more complex than ever. Technology has blurred the lines. The battle for information is constant, and the consequences can be devastating. The battle of ideas, democracy versus authoritarianism. The Cold War was an ideological struggle. It pitted democracy against communism. The battle of ideas continues today. Democracy is facing challenges. Populism and nationalism are on the rise. Trust in institutions is declining. Authoritarian leaders are exploiting these trends. China promotes its model of authoritarian capitalism. It argues that its system is superior to Western democracy. It seeks to export its model to other countries. Russia under Putin is increasingly authoritarian. It cracks down on dissent. It interferes in elections. It seeks to undermine democratic values. The ideological struggle is playing out globally. It influences alliances, trade, and international norms. The outcome of this battle will shape the future of the world. Cold War 2.0. The Cold War may be over, but its legacy lives on. We are witnessing a new Cold War. It has different players and dynamics, but the stakes are just as high. Great power rivalry is back. The US and China are locked in a struggle for global dominance. Russia is seeking to reassert itself. Other actors are vying for influence. Technology is reshaping the nature of conflict. Cyber warfare, hypersonic weapons, and artificial intelligence are changing the game. The risks are unprecedented. Ideological divisions run deep. Democracy is under threat. Authoritarianism is on the rise. The battle of ideas is far from over. We must learn from the past. We must understand the new Cold War. We must find ways to manage competition. We must prevent a new era of conflict. The future of humanity depends on it.